Hello everybody, it's a great pleasure for me to be here in sunny Granada. Well, not so, because of COVID-19 we had to make the connection in video, but I think we are going, I hope that we're both going to have fun in this venue. So I'm going to talk about the man is the measure of all things, the way to see the world around you with your body as a measuring tool. And this is, of course, going to try to keep alive the young scientist in you and in your users. And of course, this is going to talk about modeling. So I'm Christian Merkatz. I'm the Vice Director of the Institute for Research on Math Education, IREM, in Lyon. And I'm also teaching for pre-service math, secondary math teachers and primary teachers. And I'm as well researchers on math education in the science and history education laboratory. This happens in Lyon, and we have a very nice scientific environment here with especially the House of Mathematics and Computer Science, which is very, very special place that you should visit if you come in Lyon. Okay, it's not as nice as Granada and the Alhambra, but nevertheless, especially around the December the 8th, the whole city is the city of light, and it's a delightful fest. So I hope that COVID will allow you to come in December 2020, and if not, well, next December. All right, so we're going to talk about the young scientist in you. So children are making sense of the world throughout all their interaction. Okay, that's what their being a kid is. Okay, it's to play and to have fun and to make sense of the world. And this is a social thing, and for that you use your body. Okay, you move and you hear, you touch things. And what do we do in mathematics courses usually out of that? Well, not much. Usually mathematics is pretty boring, isn't it? So there are some trends trying to turn that tide. And well, I'm going to talk about real mathematics education and embodied mathematics. And I hope that this man is the measure of all things is a bit in between these two type of things. All right, so embodied mathematics and tangible dynamic mathematics is the research topic of Nathalie Sinclair from the Simon Fraser University in Canada. And the real mathematics education is a concept built by Hans Freudenthal in the Netherlands. Let's begin with that. So real math education, well, it takes place in authentic education setup. So you have first to consider reality, and then try to mathematize reality, but not the other way around. Well, usually, we don't succeed in doing that. But whenever you have the word explore or manipulate or inquire or analyze, and you want your students to design, to evaluate, and to synthesize and integrate all these kinds of things in one place, well, maybe you're on the right track in doing RME, realistic math education. So one thing that we've done in cooperation with other people in Lyon is some experiments around the Galileo bells. So Galileo was a wonderful scientist who really brought science to the level that we know today. So his focus was to understand movement. Okay, and especially he's the first one who came up with the numerical study of the uniformly accelerated movement. And how did he do that? Well, we tried to set up students in order to think on how we can do that in the 21st century. And this was done in Tunis with my colleague Benoit Ray. And well, from the student's perspective, of course, we had to use this kind of thing. That is to say, we set up a camera, a webcam camera that would recognize the position of the ball along this plane at each moment in time. But actually, without video, how do you do that? How did Galileo do that? It's not that easy. Actually, what he did is to hear movement. And he first tried to capture the time of the movement, but it's so very fast that in order to make it slower, then you have not to make free fall, but to have an inclined plane. And even making an inclined plane, it is too fast. So how can you hear the movement? Well, his great idea was to put little bells along the way, and whenever the ball would go along, it would hit the bell, and he could hear a chime. Okay, and ear is very precise in recognizing rhythm, and with that, the students were able to put little bells, and with the metronomos keeping the time, they were able to place the bells in a progressing sequence that would, with your ear, be a constant sequence. And then, in this way, you would be able to know exactly, to be able to model where would be the ball at a given time. And I find this experiment absolutely fascinating, and doing it with the students and letting the students come up with and understanding the necessity of these ideas was a great experiment. All right, and of course you can reproduce these kind of things with a computer and with the help of some digital geometry apparatus. Okay, so what about embodied mathematics? So the thing is that our body is the way that we think. I mean, we are not just a mind inside a body, we are a body. And so my student, Pedro Lealdino Filho, went in that direction, and he constructed this very, very fun game, which is called Function Hero. You can click on that link, or you can type in that in the address of your navigator and find for yourself. And how does it work? Well, the webcam is going to recognize your movement and try to snap that to some functions, right? So you will have to dance like a function. So here is very well-known movements of functions with your body, okay? And well, that's the way the game went. And it was very fun, very fun game. That was the core of his PhD thesis. We did actually other mathematical webcams with the help of Aaron Montag, who developed the integration in this very nice tool which is called CindyJS, Cinderella in JavaScript. And with that, you can set up very fun webcams, and I'm going to present some of them. So this one, so you can snap this QR code on the top right and see whether it works on your phone, but it might. This is an iterative function system. It replaces the picture of your arms, of both your left and your right arms, by your trunk, and this iteratively. Another one is much more involved. That's a conformal web cam. So you'll have to come up with some interesting functions, well, of course, you will see some Julia sets of conformal maps, if you know what you're talking about. And but this one is much more elementary. Julia webcam is just when you move your hands, then you're going to try and make and tame this Julia dragon that is going to be associated with your hands. Try it out. Okay, so another one is the anamorphosis, the cylindrical anamorphosis. So you just have to find a cylinder and put that on your screen, and you will see your face distorted on the screen, but its reflection on the cylinder is going to be undistorted. Another one is a 4-dimensional webcam, where the top is late with regard to the bottom. It's just like trying to let you play with a finite velocity light. Okay, what would you see if the light was much more slower than it actually is? That's the main purpose of this webcam. All right. So that's about embodied mathematics. So you should definitely try to involve your body when doing mathematics, and try to think about how to involve the body of your students or your users when doing mathematics, especially outdoor mathematics. Okay, we try not to be too boring. We are, as mathematicians, we know that math are fun, can be fun. Well, let's try to prove that. Okay. So one experiment that we've done in Lyon across the 3 years that we've been teaching Math CityMap and as a teaching tool for pre-service teachers is to use your own body as the ultimate measuring tool. Okay. There is nothing new about that. I mean, we've been measuring everything with our body since ages. Since the Neolithic, for example, we have some definite proofs that foot was a measuring unit in Neolithic times, and we still have feet to measure in the US and in England. So I mean, parts of the body are definitely used to measure things. But let's try to make it right. Okay, so we've set up an anthropometric ID card for all students to follow. Okay, so they had to measure their thumb, not only its width, but as well the angle that it intercepts with respect to your eye. Okay, so and we made statistics over the 3 years of teaching, so of arm gauge and height, and actually we could see that Vitruvius Proportions. So Vitruvius was an architect around Jesus' time, a Roman architect, and he was rediscovered by Leonardo da Vinci, who designed this Vitruvius Man, where Vitruvius described the perfect body, okay, the perfect proportion in classical times, and we can put that to the test and see whether these proportions are still are just a cultural thing, or whether they still apply today in the 21st century. And actually they do. Okay, so if you measure the ratio with your foot and your height, then we are pretty close to what Vitruvius said. An excellent agreement is between the arms gauge, okay, and your height. This is almost to the point 1. Okay, so you have the same extension, arms extension as your height, usually. And you also had talked about angle interception. So for students to understand what that means is not that easy. Okay, so you just take, for example, your thumb. Okay, and you here I can see that I have from my eye two planes, one on the left, one on the right of my thumb, and from my eye, this makes an angle. And letting the students understand what that means and how to compute that is a very, very fun experiment and a good introduction to modeling phenomena. Okay, trying to come up with ideas on how to measure things. So you've got the same thing with your hand. Okay, the width of your hand intercepts a certain angle, or the width of your span. Actually, the width of the index is, so this index here, you see, the width of the index is almost, is very, very narrow. Okay, whether you're tall or short or large or big or slim, well, it doesn't matter much. Your index or your thumb are approximately 1 point something degrees and almost 2 degrees for your thumb. And so it is pretty narrow. The hand as well is pretty narrow, but the span depends much more. Whether you are a violinist or you are doing yoga or I don't know what, your span can vary a lot. Okay, but so this experiment math as man is the measure of all things, and actually this allows you to model. I mean, in order to solve that, to be able to measure all this data, you have to model what is going on. And so let's talk about modeling, especially modeling outdoor. Okay, modeling outdoor is asking three main questions. What are you dealing with? Okay, what, that is to say, what are equal things? What are different that you consider now as being equal? Or what are things that you may consider equal that you want to separate? Okay, what does the equal sign means? What is important and what could be neglected? Okay, that's what. So you first have to understand that and to understand what you are dealing with. Okay, to identify the things which are important, the things which are not important. Then, because reality is complex, and so in order to simplify it, you have to take decisions to put in the same bags things that others might consider as being different, okay, or to separate things that others might think as being equal. Now, second, you have to find what is your universe, okay, what could have been, what are the different values that your things can take, okay. So you have to create a world for your situation, to give names to your things. So in mathematics, we usually have a unique name which we call x, okay. Whatever we don't know, we call that x. And that's a very, very powerful way to actually give a name to things that you don't understand, okay, that you want to know. And so you have to define your things, to know what you're talking about, to define things. And then once you have given names to your things, you have to make connection between them, especially between their values. What are the rules of your games? How do you get around in your world? Okay, what things? What are the values that your things can take, and what is the connection between the values of your things? And then you have to validate. Okay, is this first model I come up with, is it correct or not? Well, because there is never a unique model for your situation. So you have to revise and to take another look, maybe a closer look to make things that you considered as being equal to make them different, or a much further look. That is to say, to make to unite things that you first thought should be different. Okay, let's have a look at what it means in totally different setup than outdoor mathematics in optical art. Okay, I really love an op art movement artist which is called Julio. Okay, and but first I would like to talk about this kinetic art and optical illusions. Okay, so optical illusions and kinetic art is based on the fact that some movements take place in your head. Okay, they are not actually things are not actually moving, but they take place in your head. This movement takes place in your head, and Akiyoshi Kiyaoka is a Japanese scientist who does wonderful such illusions. For example, this Dongaruka Koko. Okay, so it doesn't move, all right, but it seems that it's moving. And here you can see two little spots because actually I designed that in an interactive way. That is to say, you can click on these little dots and move them and to see why this thing is moving and how it resists, okay, and how it's done. So in order to describe an optical illusion, you have to objectify what is going on. Okay, let's now look at Julio Leparc artwork. Okay, what do you see here in this ball, which was designed in 1959? So, okay, so you can see that what are the important things and what name shall we give them? Well, you can see that there are two types of shapes. There are discs on top of squares, and they are arranged in a lattice. Okay, that is to say, there are columns and there are rows. That is to say, two integer numbers. Okay, so you have positions, which are two integer numbers. You have shapes, whether disc or square, and then you have colors, clearly. And these colors, they come in a finite number of colors. So that's actually 14, I think, colors. And so it's just one integer. And then you have to relate these one to another. Actually, these colors, Julio Leparc spent a lot of time figuring out this collection of colors, and he did it in a very systematic way in order to come up with this choice of colors that he kept all his life afterwards. So you can see that now we've got to make connection between these three things: the shape, the position, the color. Okay, and what can we see? We can see that these diagonals here are of the same disc color, while these diagonals there are of the same colors on the squares. That means that the color of the disc depend on only the difference between the column and line and row numbers. Okay, they are constant on the I minus j, which is equal to constant. Okay, they only depends on the difference between the number of columns and the number of the row. While the squares, they are on the other direction and they only depend on the sum, I plus j, the sum of the number of the column and the number of the row. So you see that we've modeled everything now, we've understood what is at stake here. So you have this piece of art which is very nice and which has a great aura, in my opinion, but you can see that it is very much an algorithm. Okay, the result of an algorithm. Actually, this op art movement, they used what they called a phone exhibition. They didn't go to the exhibition. They didn't send any work, but they should just phone to a non-artist, just a plain painter, for example, who would do strictly what is said on the phone, okay, and no more, no less. And the result would be this phone piece of art. That is to say, the aura of this piece of art is in the algorithm that models its construction. I think that this is very often the case, that when you see something compelling, well, it should beg to be understood. It's asking you to be understood and to clarify what is at stake here. Okay. So that was for modeling outdoor and op art, which is a way to open a scientific eye on what is around you. Okay, in this case, what is around us is man-made, so it's much simpler than usual things that we see in nature, because that's a problem in modeling outdoor phenomena, that we may encounter phenomena which are too complex. Okay, so usually going back to phenomena which are man-made are much easier to model, and maybe that's the way to come up with good modeling tasks for city maps. And so using your own body to explore the world and manipulate the world and inquire phenomena that occur in the world is a great thing. So please enjoy your body as the ultimate measuring tool, and thank you very much for your interest. I hope that you had as much pleasure as myself in this teleconference. Happy MoMaTrE mapping!